Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Sandeep, the director of demand generation at Outplay. Hello.
Hey, Christian. Thanks for having me over. Hello.
We met at SaaStock, but we'll talk about that later. Please tell us, what is Outplay?
So Outplay is a sales engagement platform. Essentially, what it does is a lot of what Outplay does is to try to make selling a lot more easier, help you prospecting a lot more easier. So it's a multi-channel sales engagement platform. So whether you're using email, call, LinkedIn, you can use the platform essentially to reach out to prospects. A lot more personalization, a lot more at scale, essentially helping you do sales a lot more easier.
What did you say are your top 3 features?
I think our top 3 features today, in fact, we've launched a couple of new things. We've got a lead sourcing module as well. So, for example, if you're outbounding to someone, you can actually find their contact details on the platform as well. So, one of the big features that we've got is that. Two, I think another very interesting feature recently launched as well. It's called a meeting scheduler. So, if you'd like to, for example, if you're on the website and if you want to, let's say, if you have multiple reps working for you, you can set up this meeting scheduler on your website. So you can set up different functionalities, whether you want meetings to get scheduled on round robin or based on someone's geo. That's a second very interesting feature that we've got launched up as well. Third thing is something that I always love. It's something called Magic Chat. So for example, if you're reaching out to a specific prospect and let's say you drop a link that we provide and the prospect clicks that link and comes onto your website, you can have a live chat with that prospect right there on the website. So creating that very personal experience. So apart from the usual stuff that sales engagement platforms do, I think these 3 are very something that I really like as well.
So these are 3 features that are more in-depth, not so general. So
yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And what is the pricing for Outplay?
So typically, it's a sliding scales price. It typically depends on. So we actually have a full free version of the plan as well. So any user, anybody on this podcast, we'd like to go and sign up to the product. We have a full free version, and typically we've created that for a lot of early stage startups or founders who want to try something out. They can use that as well. But then we have several plans on starter, growth, and enterprise as well, right? So typically we will start the pricing in upwards of $50 and more. But it totally depends on what you're looking at, how much scale. Now, why I've given you a range of pricing is also because we also provide data. So typically, if you buy a smaller plan, you'll get data. But then some customers will want to come and pick up a lot more data points as well. When they have to do those interesting data points as well, that's when typically what will happen is that they might end up paying more. Depends on what particular plan as well, right? So typically, you start up at $39 as the base plan, the startup plan. But then if you want to pick up more credits, so I would normally give a ballpark of around $50 being the right price, but $39, and then you keep going upwards of that starter, growth, and enterprise plans.
Can you share with us some integrations of Outplay?
So yeah, so today I think one of our other very strong footholds for us is typically we integrate well with most CRM players today. So whether you have a Salesforce, a HubSpot, or a Pipedrive. In fact, today we rank very highly on Pipedrive's marketplace as well for a sales engagement platform, right? So a lot of the users who come into Pipedrive will eventually end up buying someone like Outplay as well, right? So
that's
traditionally we sync into we sync into all the CRMs today because most of the use case, Christian, is around the fact that you will have to use a CRM at some point, right? You can't just use an Outplay kind of solution like a sales engagement because once you have the meeting booked, then you'll want to be able to track actions happening on a CRM, and that's why we always have this. And the top 3 we already have, and we are already in conversations with some of the other providers as well, popular CRM providers, where we're trying to get integrations to those as well.
Okay, super. And that was my next question. Share with us some use cases. I saw that you have a lot.
We have quite a few use cases, but I'll give you the most common 2 at least that we have, right? So originally when Outplay was built, right, Outplay was built for a very outbound use case. So let's say you are trying to reach out to new prospects that you like to sign up on the business. You identify either a type of persona that you want to go after, or an industry or a company size. You get the data, and then you put it on a sales engagement platform so that you make sure that you follow a series of steps, whether it's day 1, you call them, day 2, you email them, day 3, you do LinkedIn connections, and you could build how many ever steps you want. That is a typical use case, let's say, for somebody outbounding. But what we've also seen over the last year or so is that there is a very strong inbound use case as well. Where, for example, and we use that quite a bit, right? For example, let's say you get inbound leads, people coming and signing up onto your website. You want to make sure that your account executives are following up with all of them as well and not missing, let's say, any lead, right? So what happens is, even in our use case, typically what happens when a lead comes in, it automatically goes into a sequence of the rep that it's been assigned to, almost automatically. So when they come in and sign up on the day, they know exactly that they need to follow up with, right? So because think about it largely, if you think about Christian, you spend a lot of money on driving these inbound leads. You want to make sure that nobody drops the ball and forgets, oh, I forgot about this lead or whatever.
Yes.
None of that can happen, right? So it's all the, in fact, I think it's becoming a stronger use case nowadays to use Outplay for inbound as well. So a lot of marketers, demand gen folk like myself are very keen in making sure that, hey, we want to make sure all inbound is focused. So yeah, it's a very strong inbound use case as well nowadays.
Yeah, it's great to see that you're growing in other use cases as well.
Yes.
And when was the company started?
So the company was started approximately 2 years ago, during the pandemic, in fact. Our founders, Lakshman and Ram, used to run another company called App Virality, which essentially was building apps and selling apps. Now, the company itself emerged out of the fact that they were trying to outbound to try and sell. And at that point, there were no real tools available. So they said, hey, let's just build this tool. And literally, the tool came out of a need that they were trying to solve for, right? And then they realized, hey, we can actually sell this tool to other people as well, trying to outbound like us. And that's the story, right? So essentially, approximately 2 years ago, the company was started.
Your company grew a lot in those 2 years.
Yes, we have. Yes.
How big is your team right now?
So the overall Outplay itself is a little over 100 people, the entire company. Marketing is probably around 15 to 17 people today.
Yeah, and I saw that you also raised the Series A, right?
That's right, yeah.
So yeah, those 2 years you grew a lot.
Yes, we did, yes.
And how do you differentiate from your alternatives? I saw that you also do public comparisons.
Very true. So I think how we consider our competitors typically are, let's say for the bigger competitions or the bigger people that we are competing with today, one of the major things that we have is the fact that very strong things that we have is that very high on product adoption today. Our UI is a lot easier. And again, I'm just telling everyone who's coming in, feel free to go sign up. We have a free version anyways. You might as well try it out. Yeah. Go and look at the product, try the product, see how it works and whatnot. That's a great option for everyone. But the key is that because of all of that, right, product adoption is extremely high. And we also have a bi-native integration with all CRMs today, as in the key ones, Salesforce, HubSpot, and Pipedrive as well. So today, for example, if you update something on Outplay, it automatically gets updated on all these platforms as well, whichever platform you're using. So you don't need to go and put in data one place, find data another place, nothing. Yeah. Because salespeople don't like using multiple systems. They like just one system, right? So this is essentially that one system. The second thing, I think the big differentiator, especially with some of the bigger players in the market today, is that today we have data as well. So you can buy data from the platform and directly start using it. You don't need to invest in a large database platform for your outbound prospecting at all. You can just use the data that's available within the system, and you should just buy whatever credits that you need, because you don't need to be doing 10,000 odd emails. You could be just doing a smaller batch or whatever. Depends on your use cases or how many people you have in your team. So you got that there, right? So when you have all of that, typically it makes life a lot easier. So the biggest use case we tell people is, say, sales has to be seamless. You need to be able to make it easy for people to do prospecting. So give them the data, give them the engagement, and let the engagement happen. And then it's so much easier, right? There's no worries about how am I going to make this happen. Otherwise, most platforms are fairly similar in terms of the way they operate, right? The other thing I have to also call out, with the smaller players, for example, a lot of them were not built as sales engagement platforms. They probably started off as predominantly just email providers. So the notion would be, I would want to send out emails and all of that. And later on, it was built, okay, we need to be multi-channel as well because our users want that. We were born multi-channel, as in we built the product keeping multi-channel, because we know you can never just get a meeting by sending only emails. You have to do different types of touch points. And it was always the plan in the origin story itself of doing something like that. And that's why I think we largely differentiate. The product is built like that. It's built for multi-channel prospecting, right? It's built for all of those things. But yeah, essentially those.
That's a great answer. And what do you actually do as the director of demand generation?
So my main role in the company is to ensure that I bring in the right amount of pipeline required for our sales teams to be able to close business, right? So at my disposal, I have different types of marketing avenues that I can use.
Mm.
Inbound marketing, which is performance, which is paid, organic, outbound marketing, which is webinars, events, email, content syndication, and all of those. So essentially, I have these two wings. So it's on me to figure out what are the right kind of campaigns to run across the board to bring in that amount of pipeline. So essentially, in one line, my KPI is bring the right amount of pipeline required for my sales team to close whatever target they're chasing. So we inversely calculate the pipeline based on that.
And I guess you agree that the demand gen is the future.
Absolutely, I think you have to build, creating demand is taking a whole new language nowadays. I think in the past it's only been demand is probably people look at it performance marketing, sign-ups, inbound, only that. I think now it's taken a whole new different kind of picture as well, where it's not just that. You also have to outbound market. You have to do different types of, you have to do direct mailing. You have to do a bunch of different kinds of things as well. And I think demand is now coming to that kind of sphere as well. Of course, and the greatest focus, of course, has to be on the right kind of content, pushing out the right kind of stuff that's out there. For example, like what you're doing right now, podcasts is another very good means. We have our own podcast as well. Another good means of trying to reach out to your own audience as well, right? So I feel like it's taken a much bigger story than what it used to be.
Yeah. What is the topic of your podcast?
So our podcast is called The Hype is Real. Essentially, it's a podcast that we have done in collaboration with another community called Rev Genius. So two of us together on this podcast. And what this podcast, we finished season 1, we're going to launch season 2 very soon. Season 1 essentially focused on CEOs of billion-dollar companies. And we spoke to them about how they grew from wherever they started from. Like, how did they get their first 100 customers? Like, this is $1 billion. And I say billion, I mean from a valuation point of view. How did they land from here to there? Like, what did they do? How did they hustle and make those calls? And we had some great guests, right? So we had the CEO of Gong. We had the CEO of Gainsight, CEO of Clary. So some really big names. And we really got them to tell us, like, how did they start? Like, what did they do? And I think it's a podcast that's targeted towards anyone who's either an early stage SaaS founder or somebody who's going to that 1 million to 10 million kind of growth stage. Like, what should you actually be doing? Because you can't be doing everything, but where would you focus? And I think all these leaders talk to us about that. And we also talk to them about, like, being a leader now of a $1 billion valued company. What are your biggest challenges today? You look at things very differently from when it was back then. Like, what has changed, right? Season 2 is going to happen now. Season 2, in fact, we're focusing on women revenue leaders. And we got the idea because in the last episode of season 1, we interviewed the CMO of Sixth Sense, Latani. And we thought, like, hey, this is exciting. Why can't we just do a lot more of this? So season 2, which will be launching very soon, is going to be around a lot of women revenue leaders and some great stories. I've already seen a bunch of these recordings. We haven't launched it, so it will be coming up very soon. But yeah.
I'll definitely listen to it and encourage everyone to do it. So you record the podcast first and afterwards you release them?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And when did you join Outplay?
I joined Outplay in January of this year.
So almost a year.
Almost a year, yeah. Just about a couple of months to go.
And what was your biggest challenge?
I think the first thing when I started in is to, first of all, set base processes required for us internally as well. So I think we had a bunch of things running, but to try to step back and look at the larger picture, like, hey, if we want to scale, because I think one of the key things for me is not just looking at 2022, but looking at 23, 24. Can we build the kind of org that we require for us to scale as we keep moving forward, right? And that's meaning there are quick wins you can easily get, run a bunch of campaigns and all that stuff, but then it's important to think of the org from a 3-4 year perspective also and set that base team so that as we scale, as we grow, we are doing the right kind of things. And I think the first biggest task for me is like, hey, let's find the right kind of people to make this thing actually work, right? I'm only as good as my team. So I think finding the right kind of people was a big thing initially. And I'm very lucky that we've got the right kind of people right now to help scale this org. And I think also initially to fine tune certain processes within the function. Like we even set process, like we had some processes, but it wasn't very clear because at the time before we were operating at a very small level in terms of how we were operating. But I think the focus on is like, hey, how can we drive better growth? In order to drive better growth, you need to have the right kind of processes. So I come from a larger organization, but at the same time, I also have to be aware that, see, the biggest advantage I believe that a smaller company has to a bigger company is the ability to move fast, right? A bigger company, by the time they think and figure out a campaign, it will take them forever. Like a small company, I can think now and tomorrow we can launch the campaign. So I didn't want to compromise agility in the interest of process. So we were building both simultaneously and understanding also, hey, what is the best way we can create a process that can still make our teams efficient, fast, agile, and still provide, position the quality of work that we want them to do. And I think we've built certain processes now, and we'll keep evolving as at this stage. So I think for me, creating that process, building that team, I think that was it was there in some shape and form. It wasn't the best shape initially when I joined in. So I think my biggest challenge was, how do I get this all functioning like a well-oiled engine? And I think we are in the stage that we are possibly because of that.
But it also gets easier after you've done it, and yeah.
it gets, actually, I wouldn't say it gets easier. I think there are more layers now, more complications, but I feel like at least we have a base now.
Yes.
And we can deal with all of those as we keep, because there are different problems, scaling problems that you will have. But I feel like because we have a base, it's easier for us to think of those problems. None of them are easy, but I think it's a good challenge to have now.
And can you share with us your backstory before joining Outplay? So how did you start your career?
Oh yeah, so my career is very interesting. I was an engineer when I started off, a mechanical engineer. So I joined a proper industrial setup, worked on the shop floor with machines. That was my first job, literally. Okay. And then I got really bored. I was like, no, this is not the kind of life for me. I want something that's a lot more exciting and all of that. So I went and did a master's degree in Australia. And then I came back to India and I was like, hey, okay, now let's get into the tech world. I wasn't fully sure what I wanted, but I knew I wanted something in the tech world. I got a tech world, and this was mostly in company I was focused on the financial tech, fintech side of business.
Yeah.
I was lucky when I was there. I think I showed some good promise. People liked me there. They gave me a lot more work, different kinds of projects. And I think I built a lot of my experience in that time whilst I was at that company. Then in the middle, I decided to just take a break. I think I had worked for like some few years. I said, okay, let me just take a break, try something on my own. I was trying something on my own. It didn't really click, but for me, it was like the satisfaction of trying something new was exciting. Then I came back into the corporate world again. And then somewhere through chance and through good connections and good karma, I found my previous company, a company called Freshworks, who've become IPO very recently. And I had a great opportunity there. So I worked there for a considerably long, or little more than 5 years in that company. Before I decided, hey, I wanted to taste that whole startup, early stage company kind of bug. So I was like, okay, I need to leave now. And I was very lucky that I got this opportunity at Outplay. So I think I'm just relishing every day I spend here. There's so much of learning. There are so many new different things to solve for. And I think I'm fully on it for now. Yeah.
Really happy for you. And how many people were at Outplay when you joined?
Possibly around, I don't recall, maybe around 60, 70, I think.
Okay.
I'm not fully familiar. I don't remember. Yeah. Not very small. So yeah, it wasn't a really small company. It was only 1 year. So it was not too small, but I'm guessing. I really don't know. Yeah.
And what's your one piece of advice for starting marketers?
I think one thing that I could have done earlier, and I do it now, I try to do a lot more now, is to learn from the community. Learn, whilst you can read like a bunch of articles and figure out all this stuff, there are a lot of like very good marketers out there who kind of put some really good content and real problems that they are trying to solve in their organizations. I feel like it's a great opportunity for youngsters to follow them. If possible, if you have a chance, chat with them, understand how they took their growth, how did they solve for this, where did they, and I think that's something that I didn't know back then. I do it now a lot, but back then it's like learn from the community, build your network, like talk to other marketers. Everyone's gone through the same problem or is going through the same problem, right? And everyone's trying to solve for it. So no harm in reaching out to people, like talk to more people as you can, and you will learn so much more than you will learn from online articles and videos and whatnot. And I think the best advice I ever got was from I think a few bosses previous to my time was never stop learning. Never stop learning, especially at work, right? You say like you can become the biggest person, you can even become a C-level executive, but never stop the hunger, because that is what will keep the fire going. That's what will keep your energy going. That's what will keep you engaged also, because you'll have the hunger of trying to solve something, hunger of figuring out what else is happening, hunger of things. Never lose that. So I would always tell, never settle. Marketers should never settle on like I know everything. You don't know everything. So be humble about it and just figure it out. Right? Yeah.
That's awesome. And how was SaaStock for you?
SaaStock was great. I feel like it was a great event from the point of view. It was our company's first event, that we were actually on ground at a booth, doing all of that stuff. It was the first time for the company. So I think from a branding perspective, definitely great. The fact that people in the region now know about, like even fact that you reached out and said, hey, let's do this podcast and all of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think we would have ever crossed paths, right? There is no way of us crossing paths, right? So I think it's important for us to also understand that the fact that this event gave us the branding that we required. And of course, we also picked up some great opportunities at the event as well, some great meetings, some great follow-up conversations are already happening with our larger team. So I think from a lead gen and from a branding perspective, I think it did what we came in for. It also gave us some level of standing within that region, within the Europe/UK region. More people now know about the brand than they ever did before, right? And we're not just some remote company today. We are actually there. We had presence, we did things and we showed. And I think people were very impressed by the demos that we were showing them. So I think it was good feedback for us as well, like areas that we could get better and what they loved about the product, at least in the first instance, was awesome. So I think on the whole, a good event, yes.
But how many team members were there from your company?
So there was 3 of us, apart from
only 3?
so me and 2 other folks as well were at the event. So our head of sales and one of our account executives along with me was basically at the event. I think we were clear we wanted to go out there, do as many meetings as we possibly can. So, yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite software?
Software? Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, I can very easily say Outplay.
Apart from Outplay.
In terms of, apart. No, because I used to, in one of my older avatars or earlier roles, in fact, in Freshworks, my first job in Freshworks was to build an SDR team for the US function. And I really missed a tool like Outplay back then when we started off, right? So I feel like Outplay is a great tool to prospect, to go out there, to do a bunch of stuff. But there are a lot of interesting, I think hands down, it will have to be Notion. Right? I absolutely love Notion. I mean, I wish I can get better at the way I use Notion, but there's so much of value in that product that I can't even begin to tell you, but absolutely love Notion, yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that you want to tell us today?
Nothing else, Christian. I think only thing is I'm guessing if other marketers are listening, never stop learning. If other folks are there, sales or marketing, as I said, go and try out the product. Go try out Outplay. There is a full free version available, so you can try. It's not limited in terms of what you can do in the product. Go. Plus, end of the day, we're not super expensive as well, right? Like I said, it starts off at $39. There's a $79 plan, and of course, you want much larger things. You can get higher. As I mentioned, this $39 plan is where you take up the whole annual scheme of thing as well. But anyways, on a ballpark, if you're budgeting for something like this, you can budget approximately $50 per month, depending on what kind of plans, how much credits you want to buy, and all of that stuff as well. And anyways, you can actually go to our website. The plans are super easy to think. And of course, all of our plans have free trials as well. So feel free to sign up, try it out for 14 days. And if you love it, you know how to reach us. You can get in touch with us and talk to us as well. And yeah, we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, all the links are below. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks a lot, Christian. Thank you.